were 1,989. It's so hard to keep track of them. They keep changing them every single day. You know, they got a different number. I don't know why we can't just settle on, you know, a nice number that we all like 10 or 15 or something like that. We're going to talk about
religion.
Exxon. The oil spill. Shit. And the fact that some of my colleagues in this industry, I don't know that anybody in this market's picked up on it, probably, you know. Anybody would have it's right up his alley. But we're going to talk about the purported boycott. But we've got ways to get there before we get there. Okay, trust me. Just trust me on this, would you? Because first of all, I've got to tell you about my weekend. It was an extraordinary weekend by virtually anyone's standards. And there was one of those lessons to be learned for those of you in business out there. You never know if the guy that you're dealing with has his own talk show, okay? Saturday, I decided to go ahead and buy the bicycle that I mentioned briefly last week. And so I went to a bicycle shop on McDill. I won't mention the bicycle shop's name on McDill. It's a fine bicycle shop. It's an excellent bicycle shop, as a matter of fact. And I walked in and I selected a bicycle. And they said, would you like to take it for a test drive? And I said, I sure would. And I went out and I pedaled up and down the streets of Tampa for the first time in, I couldn't tell you when. I really can't remember the last time I was on a bicycle, but it's got to go back at least 10, 12, 15 years. And it wasn't that kind of a bike. This is one of those mountain bikes with big fat tires. The big fat seat, almost large enough to accommodate someone. Well, that's neither here nor there. And anyway, I'm pedaling up and down the streets, and I'm getting flashbacks and memories of my youth, because I used to love to ride my bicycle. And it's a whole different trip. It's a new world, quietly coasting up and down. I come back into the shop and I said, I'll take it. And they said, all right. And they put the bicycle up by the cash register, and I paid for it by credit card. And as they were filling out the credit card, I saw out of the corner of my eye a young woman take the bicycle and proceed towards the front of the store and out the door with it.
Oh, my God.
Well, a lot of people that work there. I'd never been in the bicycle shop before, and I just assumed that she worked there. And I was getting a little congested up around the cash registers. And it didn't seem to bother any of the people that worked there to see her walking out the door with it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, before I purchased the bike, it was stolen. Stolen from the store before I could even get it outside of the door, and of course they didn't have anything quite like it. Well, that was bad. The problem comes in the relatively nonchalant attitude. When they send somebody, 10 minutes later, they send somebody out to look for it while they continued their business and left me standing there cooling my heels for another 15 or 20 minutes, and finally they said, geez, guess something that, would you like to see something else? By that time I figured, hell, these people, while they have an excellent reputation, and while, that looks to me like they're running one hell of a bicycle shop, apparently just don't care quite enough. Apparently are just a little bit too fat, just a little bit too comfy with their very strong position in the bicycle world in that yuppie area that I live in. And so, I said no and walked out of the store with a pile full of ripped up credit card receipts in my hand. And they, of course, are out a bicycle that was stolen, as well as a bicycle that they could have sold that day had they paid a little bit more attention. And that has utterly nothing whatsoever to do with what we're dealing with today. I just hope against hope that there's somebody in that bicycle shop right about now saying, oh, damn, it was that Lassiter. Oh,
that Lassiter.
Because if it hadn't been that Lassiter, and if it was somebody else, some other Lassiter, that might have gotten screwed royally. And in any event, he was insulted deeply. So like I said, just another lesson for all of you out there who are in business. You never know. You just never, ever know who it is that you're dealing with, do you? Then there was Sunday.
It was?
I'm a very sentimental guy, I'm into tradition. I'm into the memories of the past. Well, even just in telling you about the bicycle, going up and down the streets in Tampa, bringing back all the memories of the Knights Park in Collingswood, and all the guys God, riding my bicycle with for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, and all the adventures. All of that was brought back to me. Well, Sunday, I was at Jack Russell Stadium in Clearwater to throw out a ball for the Clearwater Phillies.
Then what happened?
I had never been to a minor league baseball game before. Hey, I'm a major league kind of guy, you know what I mean? I had never been to a minor league baseball stadium before. I mean, hey, I'm a big major league kind of guy, you know what I mean? So there were a number of surprises. I remember when I first pulled up to the stadium yesterday, I looked at Mary and I said, oh my God, it's so small. And not all of the preparations had been made. There were still a few details that had to be worked out. And so the first thing I thought is, well, I'll go to the will call window. They don't have will call windows in stadiums that small.
I think that,
But they knew I was coming. And there were tickets there waiting for me, and I went inside and had a couple of hot dogs, and the price was sure right. And I walked up and looked outside on the stadium, and God, it was so intimate. It wasn't intimidating, it was intimate. You could almost reach out and touch the players. And yet the dimensions were definitely major leagues. As a matter of fact, it was bigger than a lot of major league ballparks.
The man's not
340
big
feet down the
today,
foul
he
lines,
spent money.
400 feet to dead center. And the afternoon progressed, and I was there to throw out the first ball. And I was a little bit concerned I wouldn't be able to throw the damn thing 60 feet, 6 inches. And as a matter of fact, I couldn't. I cheated and stood, a little bit closer to home plate. I didn't really throw from the rubber. And that went all well, and then the afternoon the rest of the afternoon was free to me, and so I went up and I sat in the press box and sat back and had an incredibly enjoyable afternoon, sitting there watching a bunch of guys. I didn't know their names. It didn't make any difference playing baseball. For some strange reason, I just decided to root for the Clearwater Phillies over the St. Petersburg Cardinals, even though both are technically home teams, And I just really got off on it. It was a cool breeze, and it was shady, and people came by and said hello, and that was neat. And the people there at the park, they were even neater because they brought me the ice-cold milk to go with the tasty cakes that they were giving away. And they don't even sell milk there, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know where they came up with it, but I was very impressed. And they gave me the ball that I threw out, and that guy, they might as well have given me $1 million. And suddenly it dawns on me that just a very few minutes before, I stood on the very mound. I stood on the very dirt where Robin Roberts once stood and threw balls at the same home plate where Robbie used to throw them to, where Stan Lapata used to catch them. And I walked across the infield that Granny Hanner used to practice on, and Willie Jones and Ted Kazansky and Chico Fernandez and Richie Allen, and Bob Bowman used to run across that infield on his way out to the outfield, along with Richie Ashburn. All those years so long ago, laying on the floor in Collingswood, New Jersey.
The day after you called me when Mitch was at your house.
Towards the end of February, the beginning of March, it was still cold and gray and damp, and sometimes there could be snow on the ground. Turning on that little brown plastic radio.
This is today.
Hearing a ball game being broadcast on the weekends from some very, very far-off exotic place called Clearwater, Florida.
And my
35 years ago, Clearwater, Florida might as well have been on Mars. Every spring there were those radio broadcasts and the newspaper, the Daily News, and the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Camden Courier Post. There would be more and more articles written by fine newspaper men with datelines from strange places like Daytona Beach and Clearwater, St. Petersburg and Fort Myers.
Things that make him great, he's working in Philadelphia.
So there I was yesterday afternoon watching these guys, Class A ball. I've never seen Class A ball before in my life. I understand why it's Class A ball. They made a lot of mistakes. But then what the hell, so do I. And so what?
Not Rush.
It was baseball.
98.6% perfect.
They were the ghosts of all those great heroes of mine. All those men who were gods.
Oh, man.
I used to write off and ask for their autographed pictures and wait patiently for them to come back. Somewhere in a box I still have one that says Richie Ashburn in full color, and there's one that says Robin Roberts, and there's one that says Stan Lapata. They're still there.
One that says, Bob, this is the pawn.
Then I got to thinking about all those other giants that had passed through that stadium. Maybe you don't know who Chico Fernandez is. Well, that's okay. You're not supposed to, I guess. He's just a baseball player who played for the Phillies when the Phillies weren't a very good team.
Chico!
But there were all those other people. Mickey Mantle. He'd been right there. Mickey Mantle in the same baseball stadium. Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra crashed behind the very same plate that I threw at yesterday. Stan Musial stood there and swatted balls, and so did Hank Aaron and the Duke, and Roy Campanella, and Sandy Koufax, and Willie Stargell.
God.
Terrible, mean, miserable, nasty men. Steal victories from
Back.
my heroes.
Where it belong.
Oh, and so many more guys like Whitey Ford.
Oh, Lassie, it caused an accident here.
Yesterday,
I gotta get over to that lake.
all these dads with their sons, and moms and dads with their sons and daughters.
Lassiter.
Continuing a tradition.
Da, 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 da.
One of the finest traditions that we have in this country, baseball.
Lassiter.
Baseball or any names of the fact that it's not really making a difference.
You know, like the Fiddler on the Roof, Lassiter.
The faces didn't seem terribly familiar. The quality of play, it could have been better.
It sounded like the one there.
Almost all of them stayed till the last out. Very exciting. Very exciting. And then, the really strange thing is, Muffy was there with me. About a third of the way through the ball game, I found out something. I've been with this woman for 3 years that I didn't know. Muffy was there at baseball games. We'll be going back. A lot. But I looked around at all those people. They were nice people.
Very.
Middle-class people.
Good.
Working people, they pay their bills, pay their taxes. They say we don't have heroes anymore.
Me.
Well, we don't.
And my
Because we don't have
Lassiter.
villains anymore either. We don't There was all those nice people. They weren't nasty to the opposing team. They weren't particularly funny to them either, but just nice people who... nice people who always end up...
Let's break out the
Get the shit
saxophone.
into a stick.
Huh?
It is so often you hear...
Microphone.
Oh, so
Put you there.
price on this or such and such will do that.
That's what I'll do. You're there. You're there.
Well, this was a baseball stadium full of consumers who all their lives have ended up paying for the rest of their lives will end up paying for someone else's mistake.
So me talking.
All these damned nice people on a Sunday afternoon doing what is so traditionally American, attending a ball game. And there stands or sits this very weird little man up in the press booth watching all of this. He somehow turns all of this into what's going on today in this country, or some of the things that are going on today in this country. I was watching them and
He comes out.
suddenly started feeling sorry for them because we get dumped on every single day of their lives. Somebody is dumping on these people or robbing something from them or cheating them or misdirecting them or just generally making havoc with their lives.
Work vacuum.
That's not fair.
No.
It's not fair at all.
No.
Virtually every one of them had arrived in an automobile at that ball game yesterday. Virtually every one of them had paid 10, 15, 20 cents more for gasoline than they did a couple of weeks ago to get there. And not one of them had anything to do with the mess that's going on up in Alaska or the new oil crisis.
We're almost getting to the shop or
I got
house.
to thinking about my colleagues
And
in
then
this
I'll have to
industry.
put it on record.
People in Boston, people in Detroit,
The new tape it.
who, for some bizarre reason in the last 6 months, have come to the conclusion that they're running the world and running the country.
About 10 minutes away.
What they are doing is running off half-cocked, again, taking advantage of nice people like the boys and the girls and the moms and the dads at the baseball game. And jumping in on something called an oil spill.
Jump in that
and
oil
suggesting
spill.
something called a boycott.
Boycott?
A boycott of the company Exxon.
Boychik.
Well, you know, there is no such thing.
Boychik Yelazhensky.
What there is a boycott of the people who work there.
the people. Isn't the people. It's the boycott.
For the most part, decent, good, honest folks.
Decent, honest. Sir.
Nothing could be more wrong
Nothing could be further from
than
the
to punish
truth.
those people for what their
Slipping and
company
sliding. Third
Something
world
like 95%
status.
of the retail outlets that carry the Exxon
worldism.
sign are independently owned. Then there are the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who work directly for the company, the millions who work indirectly for the company, who don't have nest eggs, who don't have golden parachutes, who don't
Your
have
microphone.
so adversely affected by this purported proposed boycott.
Where to put you?
Suddenly it dawned on me, why in the name of God are we always punishing the wrong people? Why don't we punish the right people for a change? How do you do that? Can you think of a way to do it?
Nope. Can't even
I'll
think
tell
of a place to put the microphone.
The race is... Call. He didn't know anything about talk radios. One of the ways I knew that is he called here about 25 minutes after 3 to talk to me. But anyway, when I returned his call, he started telling me about what was going on with Jerry Williams in Boston and all these other talk show hosts who think they run the country because of the Great Teabag campaign. And the kid asked me a lot of really dumb, stupid questions 5, 6 times. And
Who
that's
is it,
about
Gary?
I dismissed him and hung up on him.
Stern.
But in essence, he was asking, how I felt about that, if I minded. I mean, literally, that's what he said. Do you mind if they do this? Maybe he did know who I was. I guess that's why I asked if I minded. But nonetheless, of course, people are entitled to do whatever they want to do. This is America. You're allowed to be as stupid as you want to be. And I, in essence, pulled the kid off. About my life that evening while watching the news. I guess it was on CNN. I saw somebody else going through this great charade of cutting up an Exxon credit card and again calling for a boycott on the Exxon company. And the person that came called mine was some guy in greasy overalls. Who works at a refinery somewhere, who's got 2 kids. One needs new braces this year. The other one's just going into junior college. There is that tuition bill. Maybe it's not that big, but
Big butt.
Still got to be paid.
Big butt.
And I thought about him being laid off. You see, they never lay off the president. But they do lay off the guy in the greasy overalls. And then I thought about a woman who works in a billing office somewhere.
It's hot out today.
Her paycheck is the second paycheck to help on that mortgage that they just took out.
Antique shops.
And she'll be laid off. God only knows what will happen to the mortgage. And then I thought about somebody who worked in a warehouse somewhere.
And then it was the rest.
Driving a forklift truck, single parent. And they'll be laid off. They never lay off the chairman of the board because they're the kinds of people who get hurt in something like a boycott. And the big guys, they'll just wait it out for a while. Hell, you guys will forget it in a week or 2 or a month or 2 months or 3 months. It doesn't make any difference. And the company won't really be that drastically affected because they will save money by laying off people like the guy at the refinery and the one in the warehouse and the one in the billing office. And life will go on just fine and super dandy for them. As a matter of fact, while they're doing that, they may even figure out ways to eliminate those jobs when you forget about the boycott. So it'll be a leaner, meaner company with a fatter bottom line. And nothing will have changed. Not a damn thing will have changed. Oh, I know some of you will feel better because you cut up your Exxon cards, and Exxon will, by the way, if they notice that you haven't been charging recently, just take it upon themselves to send you another one that you'll just probably put right in your wallet.
Right.
And nothing will have changed for the good.
What?
But companies like Exxon should not get away with this. I mean, you know as well as I do, as well as they know that you and I know, that when this happened, instead of running out to try to clean up the oil, they ran to the damned boardroom. They sat there and they talked about PR effect. They sat there and they talked about possible litigation. They sat there and they talked about everything but what they should have been talking about. And that was getting off their asses and cleaning up that disaster and doing it quick and worrying about the other consequences later. And we know that they didn't do that.
Nope.
And they ought to be punished for that. They ought to be severely punished for that. But the way to do it isn't by punishing the guy that works at the refinery. So what is the other alternative? And I think there is one. It's the only way I can think of to punish the people who deserve to be punished. Not the people who don't deserve it. Nationalize the company.
Uh-oh.
Confiscate it.
Oh, no.
Confiscate the stock holdings of all the major stockholders.
Bad thing.
Confiscate the stock holdings of all the management people.
Yeah.
One way you might do that is by confiscating all of the stock
That there ever was.
that wasn't voted by proxy. See, the small stockholders, they tend to vote by proxy. The large stockholders and the management people don't. That's one easy way to determine who might and who might not have their stock confiscated. I don't want to take the stock of widows and orphans. I don't want to take the stock of mom and pop who have 712 shares of Exxon stock that they've scrimped and scraped all their lives to buy. No, I don't. They're not owners of the company. Hell, they're dumped on by the company as much as you and I are. But I would love to get that guy that's got 112,000 shares, wouldn't you? I would love to get the shares of the chairman of the board. And I can't think of a better way that when a company messes up, than to, in essence, nationalize it and then turn around and sell it back. No, you see, I don't want the federal government running Exxon. They can't deliver my mail. No, I want them to confiscate the shares from the people who run it, who made those mistakes, who were the careless people, and then reissue the stock on the market. And confiscate it without compensation. What do you think?
I think I just
That way you
throw it
wouldn't
out.
be punished. You get the people who are genuinely and truly responsible for irresponsible management. You have the guts to do something like that? Do you have the gazungas
Couillons.
to do something like that?
Couillon.
Did you ever think about something like that? Does it seem to make sense to you? Does it seem to make one hell of a lot more sense than a showy boycott? Running off half-cocked without thinking about what the hell you're doing with your talk show?
Showy boycott.
Yeah, let's boycott it. So let's cut up the credit cards. That ought to get the TV news people over here. Let me give you the telephone numbers. 461-9352 in Pinellas, 461-WFLA. Hillsborough, 990-935-2990-WFLA. It's not a poll. It's not a sense of the audience. It's a three-part question. We can either boycott Exxon, we can confiscate the stock of the big boys, or we can forgive and forget, which is probably the American way. 990-9352 in Hillsborough.
Action against a corporation that has done some horrendous deed.
Well, personally, I don't think that you got your corporate raiders, you got everybody that...
No, we're not talking about corporate takeovers. Have you been reading the newspapers recently?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you know that Exxon has sat on their asses for a month and destroyed an incredibly large area of the Alaskan coastline.
Yes, sir.
Well, now we have a lot of people that are really PO'd at Exxon, and they want to boycott the company, which is only going to hurt the workers.
The workers, right.
Right, so I can only think of one way to hurt the people who ought to be hurt, the owners.
Okay, well...
Take it away from them.
Well, how are we going to do... You're talking about government takeover? I mean, when you're saying nationalized, you mean the government is going to take over this company?
I believe that's what is normally meant, yeah.
Okay. Well, the only people that run the government are us. And if there's not enough people out there that have enough sense to run this company, and everybody's going to still, I don't care what you do, everybody's still going to be on the lookout for themselves. They're going to CYA themselves. That's all they're going to do, because that's all, so far, that's all the United States is saying...
John, I think that you should, for this particular topic, I think there's another number that you should use, 522-0570, 522-0570. Temple Terrace, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Bob, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
How are you?
Fine.
Bob, I think it's the American people are not ready to take over Exxon. We witnessed what they did to AT&T, and we stood by, and nothing happened.
What? What the hell does that have to do with anything? I'm talking about a punitive takeover.
Yes, but what we have to realize with Exxon is that what we had here was a disaster in Alaska. But I
think everybody realizes that. What we have here is a company that did nothing for almost a month. That's what we have here.
And by taking over the company, the American government only did that one other time with GAF during World War II. And for years, which was a German-owned company, making munitions and other products here in the United States. And for about 20 years after World War II, the United States government ran GAF.
I believe I said I didn't want the United States government running Exxon. I believe what I suggested is those shares be immediately resold.
But it's just as with your argument of whether a person makes $4 an hour or $7 an hour with Eastern Airlines, that doesn't make a difference. If the government takes over Exxon...
Sir, the chairman of the board, the president, the CEO, the executive vice president, the senior executive vice president...
They control very few shares.
Sir, I was in the middle of a sentence.
Go ahead.
The Chase Manhattan Bank, who in essence decides who's going to be on the board of directors... Harvard University, which in essence decides who's going to be on the board of directors. All of those people who vote their own shares, in essence, who play an active role in the ownership and day-to-day, well, not actually day-to-day, but play an active role in the ownership and the management of the company, they are the ones who should pay and pay through the nose. Now, it would seem to me that the next time something like this happened, these, Chase Manhattan Bank, Citicorp, Harvard University, I don't know, maybe even Terry Jacobs, who knows. It would seem to me that the next time that something like this happens, those people would make damned sure that management didn't sit around on its ass. That's the only way I know of.
Bob, I drive a truck for a living.
I don't care what you do for a living.
Okay,
that's irrelevant. Do you know of a better way to make management responsive to their own faults?
Is it their own fault?
Yes, sir. When they do nothing in a disaster like this except worry about getting sued, do you know a better way to make management responsive to their own shortcomings and faults?
No, I don't.
Thank you ever so much. St. Petersburg, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob. I don't call you very often because I don't agree with you that much. My name is Mac.
Don't need your name or why you don't call.
All right. I was in the oil business.
Don't need your life history
11 million gallons of oil that was spilled, the gasoline.
Sir, I believe I asked boycott, confiscate, or forgive and forget.
All right, then let's just forget it because you don't want to hear me out.
No, sir, I don't want to hear about your life history, but I would like to know where you're from.
I don't want to tell you about my life history. All I said, I was in the business.
Boycott, confiscate, or forgive and forget. Which is it going to be?
Do you know? Well, now, it's entirely up to you. You can push the button. I don't care what.
What the hell? I pushed it.
Love this house. I'll buy it.
Stood there in front of the television cameras and said, well, you guys are going to have to pay for this, You can't expect us to pay for it. Silly people, silly consumers. And remember how teed off you were about that one? Well, why are you having such a difficult time grasping a new concept? Grasping the concept of making the people who are responsible for this pay for it? I mean, what are you, some kind of a jerk? Didn't you notice what you paid at the gas pump the last time you filled up? Not a penny is coming out of the pocket of the large stockholders of this company. Not a penny. Not a penny is coming out of the pockets of the management of this company. Not a penny. Every time this kind of thing happens...
You lost your program, that's all.
But it's always passed on to the consumer. Aren't you tired of it? Did it ever dawn on you to pass it on to the guy that owns the place? Unbelievable. Tarpon Springs, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, Bob, kind of concerned about myself. I'm agreeing with you for a change. I think it's a fantastic subject and a great idea. I think it'd also work in the Lorenzo case.
It's a lot of cases that would have worked.
We don't have any way to go to them, but how are we going to find a legislator to defend the public interest on this?
Well, what are you doing next election?
Well, I think everybody should address their legislator on how they stand on those areas.
No, why don't you run?
Excuse me?
I meant, why don't you run?
I had my fill of politics in the years past. It's a frustration. They're afraid to take a stand against potentially, PAC money.
Well, I guess a lot of people are afraid to take a stand, like yourself.
Well, I think it's a consideration when we go to the polls, though, to ask our candidates how they stand on that issue. It's breaking the norm. It's a little bit different, but by God, I believe you 100%. Why let
Well, it seems to make a hell of a lot more sense to ask the chairman of the board to pay for it than it does to ask me.
I'm 100% with you.
I got no Exxon stock.
I don't have any Exxon stock either, but they're the ones that make the decisions, and the people that pay for it are the guys that are working in the plant.
And it just seems to me to be utterly ludicrous to ask their employees to pay for this as well.
Well, I, for one, would love to hear a solution to presentation to the legislature on it. How to go about it, some good direction on it. There's a tremendous amount of people that would not even address it because it's too controversial.
I don't see why. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Take care. No, good luck to you. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. One line open in each county. Zephyr Hills here on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Zephyr.
I think that they should nationalize or attempt to take at least what they could for the big ones. Boycotting. People think that just not buying Exxon fuel is a boycott. They're into so much stuff. I have no idea what they're into, but it's more than just petrol.
Well, besides, if we come up with an entire list of what they're into, so what? Why hurt the innocent employees? The guys like you and me.
That's exactly right. They're just a couple. They're just poor little schmucks like you and me trying to make a living.
You better believe it, and there are an awful lot of big schmucks who are running the show. They're the ones that ought to pay.
That's exactly right, and I feel that there should be a way to get them, and they're hiding. They hide under the umbrella, the corporate umbrella, and think that they're immune. And yet, the corporation will take the rap, and they think, well, we'll just stand back off the side. And there's a lot of people that did not make decisions and did not act, and just really got caught with their pants down on the thing.
Well, also, it just drives me insane that these, frankly, these idiot talk show hosts who think they're running the country these days, coming up with the boycott. Oh, give me a break.
That's ridiculous, because, what are you going to, you think you just quit buying your gasoline? Big deal.
Cutting up the credit cards. Oh.
Big deal. Hey, so what? Like you said, that's such a small, that's just the tip of the old proverbial iceberg. It goes much, much deeper than that, all the stuff. It would probably make both the average guy's head spin to find out how much of their dollar really goes to Exxon every day.
Now, let me ask you a question, and not to be a smart ass. Why did you think of it?
Why? I'm sorry?
Why did you think of it?
Think of what, sir?
Confiscating the company.
Confiscating it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a good question, to be honest with you. I probably hadn't really pondered it until I heard you bring it up. But you always make me think. You've made me think for a long time now.
Well, it's just that there are so many instances of this. Some of them, frankly, by Exxon previously, some by other companies, not just oil companies. And I just don't understand why no one else has ever thought of it before.
This is true, and really, it transcends just this oil thing. It can go. There's so many things, and I think that's one of the reasons why. Of course, one of the reasons why people incorporate is to protect themselves in case something goes wrong, to protect the individuals. The corporation takes the rap, but very rarely do they get to the CEO and people like that.
And the best way to get to him is in his pocket.
Oh God Almighty! Yes, you hit him in the hip pocket, and they take notice. They certainly do.
Certainly will. It won't help this time, but maybe it might help the next time. Maybe.
If enough people could, if the movement, or if there was just enough fervor out there, where enough people just even mentioned it, even just the threat of it, the thought of it.
I understand accidents, and I'm sure you do too. And I think that had they really jumped on this one, I would have said, well, okay, damn it, it was an accident, all right.
That's right. Stuff happens. We know that. They didn't do it on purpose. I feel almost certain of that.
But 30 days later, before
they're still out there fighting it, and the poor.
As well as that cowardly Bushy in the White House too.
Well, that's probably true. There's no reason. That should have been that should have been mobilized. That cost for hundreds of thousands of people. If there's any reason to mobilize the military, that was one.
If only there was some way of, for example, calling a special line at the White House and saying, okay, I know he's busy, but in between appointments, could you go in there and ask him basically what he thinks of this idea?
That's right.
Boy, wouldn't you just love to see the expression on Bushy's face?
Yeah.
Probably. I'm glad there isn't a line like that, because it might give him a stroke, and we know what happens then.
Oh, my God.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Bye.
Captain of the... a woman who made the chocolate chip...
Sir, excuse me.
And if she's ever fool enough to come back in...
Sir?
We're going to chain you to the wall and just, have you make chocolate chip cookies for us for the rest.
Can you tell me where Del Mabry is?
The chocolate cream pie was not exactly,
Yeah.
Or stuff, but... The truth of the matter is they were not chocolate chip
2 miles?
They were chocolate with cookie chips. That's what they amounted to. But nonetheless, back to the phones.
144.99 Del Mabry.
Clearwater, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Hi, Clear.
Oh, Bob.
Well, as long as I get to Del Mabry, yeah. So just go down here 2 miles to shopping center, and that's Del Mabry.
First traffic light should be able to be Lake Magdalene.
Yeah.
I believe there may be one in Orange Grove. It's a little small street. You want to go, you can't miss it.
Okay.
You'll know it when you get there.
Thanks.
Ridiculous. Let's sit back and figure out how to skirt the issue or get the government to pick up the tab or everything else.
Well, if Michael and I open up, Bob and Mike's lemonade stand, and we set up out here in Jackson, we put out a bad batch of lemonade. Or, okay, we don't put out a bed. We'll try to keep this the same.
2 miles.
We open up down by City Hall, and we knock over a pitcher of our lemonade, and he kills a bush in front of City Hall. Well, City Hall's going to look to Mike and I to pay for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if we don't pay for it, they're not going to say, well, all right, then why don't you just charge more for your lemonade and get people who are walking by here to pay for it? That's ludicrous, isn't it?
This carnival atmosphere on TV of people taking little bags of oil with their credit cards and sending them back. Whether they do it or not is going to affect absolutely nothing, except, if anything, the person that should not be affected by it. Meanwhile, Chase Manhattan sits back, they're collecting their check, they'll probably benefit from this thing somewhere up the line.
Probably will.
But just a fantastic idea and a great show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. 990-9352. In Hillsborough, 990 WFLA. Now we go to Clearwater again. Hi, Clear. You're on the air. You're on the air, Clearwater.
You're on the radio station.
The idea you have is, in theory, is good.
In theory, okay. Why?
I just see a lot of problems with it.
Well, let's talk about it.
All right. Initially, I think your slow response on this, first off, was the fact that there's a lot of people out there that really don't understand the theory behind nationalization. Secondly, I think that...
well, I'm not pleased with the word nationalization. Let's use the real term here that applies: confiscation.
Okay, I think that would have been more readily accepted. But I'm seeing it's kind of idealistic the way I see it, because I feel like, first off, if we went to a nationalization or confiscation, it would probably be tied up in the courts for a long time. Therefore, it would give Exxon an even better excuse to sit back on their laurels and not take care of the problem at hand. There's a complex out there, industrial complex that's so hard to crack. It would definitely. It would cure the problem if we could do it one time.
That's right. Because, you know what happened the day that the tanker ran aground? They called the bean counters in. And they said, okay, bean counters, what's going to be cheaper, paying for the cleanup or paying the litigation that will ensue?
Well, sure.
And then they waited for the bean counters to come up with a number.
Well, there again, though, you're dealing with people who are being paid to make a buck.
To be bean counters.
I mean, that's what they're there for. Now, that's not right, but it's the facts.
Well, there are other things that they can use the bean counters for. We're not going to put the bean counters out of work by doing this.
Well, I'm not, as far as the bean counters are concerned, I couldn't care less. But what you're dealing with is some CEOs whose job it is to turn a profit and cut the losses. Now,
it's also their job that the company, perform in a responsible manner.
Yes, indeed. To be policed better. And like I say, I think that if this could be affected, it would have a rippling effect that would stop a lot of this stuff. But the initial, putting this into effect would be very difficult, and it wouldn't. I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to more or less, if we decided to really go ahead with this, we'd have to decide that we were foregoing curing or cleaning this oil up because it would slow it down and go for a different goal.
I would agree with you that it would be very difficult to pull it off with current laws, but all it would really take is a special act of Congress saying, whoops, there it goes, and then let the people who were, shall we say, wronged in this try to demonstrate in the courts that they were wrong, but they would just lose automatically. They would lose their stock automatically. They would therefore lose their jobs automatically. with special act of Congress. It's been done before.
Well, so what we're getting back to is not necessarily calling for nationalization, but
going the other way on
going to the Congress to change the present groundwork. If you go for confiscation, you're muddying the waters.
Well, of course, that would be a disaster. We're talking about a whole new set of options and rules and regulations and laws here.
Right.
Thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it, Bob.
I appreciate it. One line available. It is in, where is it? Pinellas, 461-9352, 461-WFLA.
Just confiscate that stock and tomorrow turn around and sell it. Put it on the market in a timely fashion. If it's going to be like 48% of the stock, you can't dump that on the market tomorrow. But, hell, start selling it off at 0.25% a day and, just put the money back in the Treasury. Hell, take that money and put it back in the Treasury. The U.S. Treasury, not Exxon's. What would that accomplish? Well, not a great deal in this particular case. It's not going to get those shorelines cleaned up. It's not going to bring back any of the bird or other wildlife. But what it might do is the next time there's an accident like this, instead of calling in the accountants to see, well, is it going to be cheaper to clean this up or is it going to be cheaper to just, put up with a lawsuit? Report back to me in 2 weeks when you have the figures, please. Maybe instead of doing that, they'll say, to hell with the cost. Hey, we got to save this. Let's get off our duffs and do something here. So I would ask you, in a case like the Exxon, which would you prefer? Boycott, confiscate the stock of the big muckies, or forgive and forget like we're going to end up doing, and you pay the bill. Bel Air, you're on the air at 970 WFLA. Hi, Bell.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I'm in kind of a sticky situation with my own feelings.
Well, you're not caught in an oil spill, I hope.
I'm a staunch environmentalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a shareholder of Exxon. Very minor. Inherited some widows and orphans stock a few years back.
Wouldn't touch your stock. I don't think you have no responsibility in this. You're just a little schmo like I am.
Yeah, but what I'm worried about, I'm afraid that what you want to do won't accomplish what you want to do. Well, I'm afraid of protecting the value of my shares. When that's dumped back on the thing, I know you're going to do it real slow, but still, it might cause a panic, and the price of Exxon could go down, which is not good for me. And also the possibility that the new management or the new people up at the top are going to take it out on the shareholders and lower our dividend, and it's not fair to the widows and orphans and the people at the bottom that just have a.
Wasn't fair to the otters either.
Pardon me?
Wasn't fair to the otters either.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I think that if you were going to do something like that and get some, pull some money out of Exxon, that, some of it should go up there, to help the environment.
Well, of course, obviously. But let me give you some other examples of things in the recent past where we might have used this type of an approach instead of the other type of approach, where in essence the consumer, whatever the hell that means, ends up paying the bill. A few years back, Ford Motor Company, the Pinto, clearly demonstrated in court that they made and I believe it was an $8 decision. Would have cost them $8, if memory serves me, to correct the problem per vehicle. And they called in the bean counters, and the bean counter said, well, bottom line is, the odds are that so many of these suckers will blow up, and the odds are that so many people will sue successfully, and they will get this kind of a settlement. So, in essence, it will be cheaper to let these cars blow up and settle out of court, or in court if we have to, than to pay the $8 to solve the problem. Now, it would seem to me, and, I'm very fond of Ford Motor Company products. I've been buying them now for quite some time. But it would seem to me that that was such a reprehensible decision on the part of the management of that company that suing Ford Motor Company for $400 or $500 million, or even $1 billion, which is only going to be taken and turned around and passed off onto the people who buy Tauruses and Continentals, and it would seem to me that what should have been done is for the senior management and the major stockholders of Ford Motor Company to relinquish their stock and just get out, because that was such a reprehensible decision. They deserve to lose it, don't you think?
Well, you can't blame Exxon for that, though.
No, I'm not blaming Exxon for that.
We're talking about oil, and the other thing you were saying about the prices going up. Well, Amoco's going up, Shell's going up, Phillips 66 gas is going up.
That's right.
And
they're all taking advantage of this, as you well know.
Basically, the price of oil is set as a world market type thing, and
yes, but
so it's not like your example of
the prices are set just like any other commodity. They're set on fear and greed. They go up
that's
with
what
greed.
Drives the whole stock market.
Of
fear
course,
and greed.
of course, it's called supply and demand in polite circles, but it's really fear and greed.
Well, I'm glad we at least are in the right circles to be talking about it that way. I think politically it's going to be real hard to sell because it's not the American way. Free enterprise, go in there and basically shaking up a company and then getting out. It's going to be real hard to sell politically. I don't even know where the politicians would begin to try to get something done like that. What do you think?
My goodness, wouldn't you like to see the expression on their faces?
I'm going to miss you Friday at Calb's Cove. I'm going to be down that way Thursday, and we're going to dinner there Thursday night.
Well, yeah, why don't you just stay over for a second night?
Yeah, well, we could.
It's a very pleasant place.
Get a motel down there, and what the heck?
Oh, come on! I'm sure they'll let you sleep on the floor for one night. Bring your sleeping bag with you.
Can I do one unsolicited testimonial for Calb's Cove?
Sure.
Real quickly. I've been listening to talk radio for a long time, and went to Calb's Cove when it first opened. Had a bad experience, said I'll never go back there again, and I started listening to commercials on FLA, and I listened to Uncle Dickie, and once you've had a bad experience at a restaurant, a lot of people just turn around and just vote with their pocketbook and never go back.
Well, I know what you're saying.
Uncle Dickie talked me into it, and I said, I'm going to go, and then you talked about it, and I went, and it was great. It's top-notch. They whatever happened is either that night or they've turned it around, and it's first-rate. And I used to be in the restaurant business, and I know it from both sides.
It's a dynamite place.
It certainly is.
Thank you much.
Have a good one, Bob.
Be good. Take care. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Not again. It was two glorious days of not hearing that miserable song.
Didn't you hear me out on your front lawn over the weekend playing that and saying, "Hi, Bob"?
Oh, you're not into that again with a pan flute?
Yeah, doing my Zamfir imitation.
Oh.
That was me.
Oh.
You thought it was a bad dream.
Well, you're not still wearing the skin-colored tights, are you?
The lederhosen.
Well, how was your weekend, Gar?
Oh boy, it was it was great, Bob.
Lots of persons.
Yes, just persons just coming out of the woodwork, Bob.
You really enjoyed the party at the.
Bob, I was meaning to ask you about that. Must have been some mixed directions or something there. I went to Tampa Stadium, like you said. You said between 3 and...
Tampa Stadium?
3 and 8, didn't you say, or something like that?
No, that's the new Sun Dome over in St. Petersburg. Yeah, that's what we meant.
Oh. I clearly wrote 2 or 3 times here. I wrote down. I still have my notes. Tampa Stadium.
Well, you must have been, with all of the noise up there.
I'm going to check the logger tapes. I'm going to check the logger tapes, Bob.
Yeah, that would be the best thing.
I think you fooled me.
How's the weather? The traffic, yeah. Well, how's the weather, too?
It's about, 82, 83 degrees, a little hazy, but...
Around the Grand Prix Car Wash, 3 locations. In South Tampa, 3622 Gandy Boulevard. It's about a half a block east of the crosstown. In Seminole, 10471 Park Boulevard. That's about a half a block east of Seminole Boulevard. And in Clearwater, 1880 Gulf to Bay Boulevard, across from the Clearwater High School. Grand Prix Car Wash. Sarasota, hi, Sarah. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi. I think right before you broke for the news last hour, you had the key word, and that's responsibility. Where are we going to draw the bottom line for responsibility and accountability with these large corporations? If, in fact, the reality is that the cash flow and the overall performance of the corporation is what they're most concerned about, then these folks should be held accountable with that cash, because it seems like it's the only time a corporation will take some sort of action for itself for a problem that's happened. That's their responsibility is when it hits its bankroll, and that's the only time it's very few and far between, it seems, that a corporation will take preventative measures for something like this happening.
Well, it seems to me that when you talk about private ownership, when you talk about free market, free enterprise, getting government off your back, et cetera, then you ought to be willing and able to accept full responsibility. And I just don't know any other way to do that, except to say, it just isn't working when you say, oops.
No, I can't see of it happening in really like any other way. Also, you see, it all boils right back to the point. It seems like it really seems like most American corporations fail to take action or to take precautions against something happening, to take these preventative steps against them.
It's also American government is failing to hold the feet to the fire. I mean, you know as well as I do, there's going to be some type of EPA
investigation and fact finders,
and there'll probably even be like a $15 million fine.
Oh, sure. and then that'll get tossed right back on to us, the consumer, and higher prices overall, and we'll give them more.
It'll probably be tax deductible, too, for them.
Oh, sure. In fact, they've been saying that all of the costs for the cleanup will be written off completely, and I think that's a crock.
It certainly is, because, again, it makes you and I pay for it twice.
I know, and just go over and over and over again.
Well, these dudes are only getting richer. No, I'm tired of it. There's got to be a better way.
Sick and tired of it, and yes, it is a radical concept, and the political ramifications, who knows? I think one of the previous callers was correct in saying that I don't think our country is, unfortunately, ready for something this drastic.
I don't know how drastic it is, if you must know the truth, because to tell you the truth, I can't begin to conceive of it ever being the case.
No, that ain't.
If we were to enact this tomorrow, I think it would change overnight the way that we did business in this country, because nobody would take the chance of it.
Responsibility and accountability would move back up into the mainstream for the first time.
The next time the bottom
liner sat down to the boardroom with a door closed to try to figure out whether to spend the $8 for a car. Well, then somebody's going to stand up and say, real quick. Well, I want, maybe the bottom line could be a little bit thicker, but I would like my portfolio to remain thick.
For as long as possible, and you see, it's these silent investors that sit on the stockholders board and vote for new programs in the corporation. That is where the crux of the matter boils right down to, and I think that your whole concept, although maybe not feasible, is really a great idea.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Bob.
Take care. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News Desk. Donald. Again today, shortly before I start. One of the people here came up to me. I was sitting in the control room and started talking to me about Dr. Sokol's Quit for Life program. And it was that look that I've come to see so many times on the faces of all different kinds of people and all different kinds of walks of life. The look is, I hate this stuff. I just don't know how I can quit. Please tell me there's an answer. That kind of a look. And yes, there is an answer. The answer is twofold. First of all, you decide you really want to do it. Secondly, and you get in touch with Dr. Robert Sokol. The program is called Quit for Life. No gimmicks, no games. 2 1-hour sessions spaced a week apart. The total cost, $39.50. Quit for Life. Let me give you the telephone number, please. 787-5530, 787-5530. If you know about that look that I was referring to, if you know about that feeling about, oh, God, I want to get out from underneath these things, dial that number, 787-5530. Fair enough? I would hope so. To the phones again we go. This time it's St. Petersburg. Hi there, St. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Good afternoon.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear your position on this. I've been saying it all week, and my family looks at me like I'm crazy. But it seems to me when anybody does a criminal act and they're confiscating the things, like you said, that's the logical thing to do. These people have made $88 billion last year over the whole worldwide. And so you're right, you're not going to hurt them that way. But there's two things that particularly made me realize you can't hurt them except by the way you say. Remember in the beginning where they had lobbied Congress for single-hull tankers to save money?
Yep.
And then the second thing that I read in a reprint of an editorial from the New Republic, Hendrik Hertzberg, he writes that they boosted their profits a few years ago by getting rid of 80,000 of their 182 employees. That was including all of their oil spill specialists. Now these people are incompetent and negligent.
Yo.
The legal person. And slap them damned hard.
Oh, exactly. And then yesterday in the business page, they report that this is going to create a profit windfall for the big oil companies. And in July, when they report it, they're going to face another public outcry. So it's going to be yelling all the way around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Be good. Off it is now to Tampa. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob. Hope you got the book I left you. I know you kind of related to some hard times you went through in your life. Maybe it helped you out with them. I gave it to Mike when I was over there. This thing about Exxon, it got me all upset. People think your ideas are so outlandish, revolutionary, but this is closer to home, and people, just because it's not in the contingent 48, they don't look at it. This happened to Americans, and it's affecting the American economy. And the way Exxon came off with the audacity, like, well, we're going to be good guys, and we're going to go out and clean it up. And here it is now. How long? And it's not even 10% cleaned up. And if this would happen to somewhere on the East Coast, or even just around Florida, they said from Key West to Jacksonville alone on the East Coast would be completely covered.
Well, as the longer they wait, the more that quote-unquote nature breaks it up. So someday, somewhere, a slicko maybe 10 by 10 feet will wash up in San Diego, and someday another slick will wash up in Japan, and someday maybe another little slick will wash up here in Florida, and they'll all be relatively small, and they'll do mild little damage here, there, and the other place. No.
Well, that big the big one they had in France, they're just now getting where, like, the oysters, I saw over the weekend a special and just now, 10, 12 years later, there's oysters are starting to grow again.
I believe you're referring to that spill.
And one thing about your plan is the way you want to do it. I like to see the money go back into some kind of research or a vest for some kind of vessel or something that would clean this up, because it struck me funny here how much our economy runs is generated on the coastline, and here our number one competitor, the big red menace, they're the ones that's supposedly got the latest, largest, best equipped.
Holy moly! I just thought of another possibility that we might do with the money in a situation like this. Put it back into research for a non-petroleum fuel, for a synthetic fuel.
Well, that's another way of going. It's just a way of preventing it. It's, because when we have to ask the Russians to come over here and do something for us, and here we're supposed to be the big leader of, the world, I think something's definitely wrong, especially the way, like our economy, where our continent sits with, surrounded by an oceans on virtually three sides, and then with Hawaii and Alaska like it is, and the economies, the way they're run, we have to look out for our own kind. And as you said, if you go in between Tampa and Apollo Beach, there's 3 Exxon stations, and I know 2 of the people who work there, and they leased them, and they were reasonably successful. And the people ended up after 2-3 years, they had to give them up. They couldn't afford to do it.
I think you've stumbled upon the key phrase here. We have to look after our own kind. And the fact of the matter is, chairmen of the board of large oil companies are not our own kind. Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
2 in Pinellas, 990-9352 in Hillsborough. Without going into any lengthy explanation for the benefit of those of you who may just be kind of joining us, in essence, I've asked a question that has 3 possible answers to it in terms of the oil spill and responsibility for the oil spill in Alaska. Hopefully you would know about the oil spill in Exxon. There are a group of people who have suggested doing something about it. A group of people are some of my colleagues in this industry around the country. Brilliant men who have suggested boycotting Exxon. I think there may be two other possibilities instead of boycotting Exxon. Those other two possibilities would, of course, be to forgive and forget. That would certainly be the Christian thing to do. Or confiscate Exxon stock from high-level people in management. You know, I'll bet you that chairman of the board's got quite a few shares of that sucker stuffed under his mattress, you know what I mean? And possibly some other large shareholders. The reason behind it, the concept behind this being that these people want the benefit of ownership, so they should also have some of the risk of ownership as well, wouldn't you think? You know, other cases that this might have applied in, for example, the Ford Pinto case several years ago. Instead of suing Ford for $400 million or whatever it was, it would have only ended up being passed along, and it was. Confiscate the stock of the top Ford people, the ones who made the decision not to spend $8 to keep that gas tank from being in a vulnerable position. Or another case that might apply in a situation like this would have been maybe something like 3 Mile Island, a utility that just did not have good safety practices. I mean, an entire community was disrupted by this. God only knows what the long-term effect of this is. Those people have no business. I'm sorry, but the people who head up that public utility have no business whatsoever running it, and it is just unconscionable. The decent working men and women who have no choice but to do business with that utility are in essence eating it. I mean, I think it's time that the guys who are running the companies started eating it. And we might take the proceeds. We're not talking about nationalization here. No, we're talking about confiscating the stock and then reselling it. You know, I don't want the Department of Interior running Exxon. No. Probably be worse than who does run it now. But I think that it might be reasonable. Well, nonetheless, that's the premise. Boycott, confiscate the stock, or forgive and forget. They're pretty much the choices. Two lines available, both of them in Hillsborough. 990-9352, 990-WFLA, St. Petersburg. Hi there, Sainty. You're on the air.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
All right. I definitely agree that we ought to confiscate the stock, or, as Michael Serio put it, he really had a good term, management stock seizure. That sounds like an even better term, I think. But the only thing I'm wondering is that, like, how would that be? How we go about that? We do that legislatively. If that's the case, it would take a long time and more likely be voted down. Or do we do it like a presidential order or something like that?
Presidential order or an act of Congress?
Well, an act of Congress can be kind of bought by these guys in some respects, unfortunately.
Well, how would you, sir, if this were possible, how would you like to be the congressman or the senator who stood up in front of the television cameras to defend the pigs running Exxon, who basically sat there chatting with the bean counters trying to see which would be the cheapest way of doing this? How'd you like to be the one to stand there and defend them in front of national TV?
Certainly, I wouldn't like to be in the guy.
I don't think anybody would like to be.
Oh, yeah. And as far as the presidential order is concerned, I mean, obviously, the president makes the order, and federal marshals come in and grab all the stock. And obviously, that's not going to sit too well with the current resident of Pennsylvania Avenue, because he wouldn't necessarily he'd kind of like to have his job for another 4 years.
Well, I think he'd be much more likely to keep his job for another 4 years if he issued the special order than again coming before the nation and trying to say, well, my good friend, Harry Futzmacher, who runs Exxon, oh, God, his kids need braces, and I don't think, oh, God. You know,
yes, definitely, but, I don't know, but he drug his feet. But he drug his feet immediately. You know, when he saw that Exxon was dragging his feet, that could have been a prime opportunity for him to.
That's because there is nothing we can do to these people. Absolutely nothing. Georgie knows it. You know, Harry Futzmacher or whoever who is running Exxon, he knows it. Everybody knows that we have utterly no real recourse. What are we going to do? Sue these people in court for $150 million?
Yeah, they've got lawyers from here to California.
Well, so what? I mean, all they have to do. Frankly, the cheapest thing for them to do would be to say, oh, okay, here's your $150 million.
About it, and that would be kind of petty change to them.
Absolutely. However, I feel reasonably confident that good old Harry Fuckmonster here has at least $150 million worth of Exxon stock, and it's going to kill him. That's his lifelong accumulation of wealth. Harry's going to be real bummed out about that. So maybe the next time it happens, another Harry's going to do the right thing without worrying about bottom lines and quarterly reports and things of that nature.
Well, definitely we have to have, it's a drastic measure, but a drastic measure must be taken because all other measures have obviously failed, and boycotting is certainly going to hurt just the little guys down
people.
The line.
Yeah, like we always do. We always beat the wrong guy.
Yep. Oh, by the way, my wife and I will be celebrating our first wedding anniversary on the 6th of June, and we will certainly be over at Cal's Cove for that.
Hey, fantastic. There's not a better place to do it.
All right. You take care, Bob. I listen to you every day.
I understand that. We've got the wrong guy in there. If we're going to try to get, for instance, remember Harry Truman when he nationalized the steel. Well, he didn't have any steel stock. But you've got Bush, who is, his whole background is CIA and oil. And I think it's the wrong guy to be, it's the fox in the hen house sort of thing.
Well, again, if Congress and the Senate would propose this type of legislation, Bush would be virtually powerless to stop it. He would not want to stand, not if he wanted another 4 years, he would not want to stand before the country and say, well, geez, it isn't fair to ask the owners to take the hit. You should take the hit.
Well, yeah.
That's not a great way to get reelected.
I don't disagree with you, but I can't see Congress or the Senate or anybody getting their act together in time to really make anything happen to Exxon that has any teeth in it.
Oh, this time around, no. It's you can't legislate after the fact. But I'd sure love to see it. I'd sure love to see it lurking there for the future.
Well, the other thing that bothers me about this whole thing from right back in the beginning is the timing of this oil spill. Here we have OPEC finally getting their act together. They're raising the prices.
Uh-huh.
And now you've got this tanker running down a 10-mile wide channel.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the prices were rising. It's what, the oil patch wants. They want the prices to go up however they have to do it. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But it's just there's too many unanswered questions on how the hell did it happen in the first place?
It's a coincidence. Don't get involved in conspiracies like that one. It is a coincidence, but there are a lot of other things that are going to come together in a reasonably short period of time. In all probability, it'll knock those prices right back down where they came from. My friend, I thank you very much.
Okay.
Take care. Yes, high above the Tampa Bay area, in his very own two-seater Stanley steamer, our beloved bronze washboard of a traffic reporter, the dangerous Harry McHenry.
Cal's Cove, Friday night. What time did that start Friday night, Bob?
Oh, it's for couples only, Gar.
Oh. Northbound I-275 approaching Lois Avenue. Had a report of an accident there. It's okay, Bob. Don't worry about it. It's all out of the way, so it's not causing any big delays. 40th Street under I-4. That's a breakdown. Apparently, after they broke down, they got mad and left, so they left the car in the middle of the roadway there. That has been causing just a minor delay. You are able to get around it. Highway Patrol standing by there. And an earlier problem, Howard Franklin Bridge, all back to normal now. East and westbound, that's moving along well. Northbound Del Mabry, very heavy traffic up toward Fletcher Avenue in the Carrollwood area. Right now, over Hyde Park, I'm Gary McHenry, 970 WFLA Airborne Traffic.
A surgeon making a tiny incision with a scalpel will cut thousands of human cells, while a surgeon working with a laser can isolate a few cells. Greater precision is one reason why surgery at the Florida Laser Center at Palms of Pasadena Hospital can be so much simpler than conventional surgery in many cases. Because precise surgery can mean less pain, less loss of blood, less anesthesia, and faster healing. In fact, for some patients, laser precision can transform a major operation into an outpatient procedure. Ask your doctor about the Florida Laser Center at Palms of Pasadena Hospital and call 1-800-448-6200 for a free illustrated brochure. That's 1-800-448-6200. Because the more precise surgery is, the less complicated the recovery.
There's a little extra magic. There's a little extra magic. There's a little extra magic on every Sea Escape cruise. Now, there's a little extra magic on every Sea Escape cruise. hearty breakfasts, mouth-watering lunches, and extravagant dinner buffets that are bigger and better than ever. International cuisine nights in our restaurants that will take you to faraway places. Dazzling new floor shows that will really floor you. An expanded children's program on every cruise that will keep kids spellbound. Plus non-stop music, dancing, and fun in the sun. Full-day cruises on the magical Gulf of Mexico are only $79 per person plus port charges. Experience the magic now. Call your travel agent or Seascape at 1-800-432-0900. 1-800-432-0900.
Let's Seascape take you on a big cruise.
Ships Registry, Bahamas.
I don't know, Michael. Perhaps McHenry is the only person that I might recommend instead of getting a life of his own, which obviously he doesn't have. McHenry is the type of person I would recommend that really does get into talk radio. 24 minutes after the hour. I mean, what a shot, huh? 24 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. I will assume that a fair number of you are very pleased with your homes, very proud of your homes. You've owned them for quite a number of years, and you've been fairly well settled in the neighborhood. Kids are in school, but the house could use a little bit more room. Well, you trot down to the bank. They'll probably give you, maybe 70, 75, 80% of the cost of a home improvement loan so that you can expand or update or modernize or whatever it is that you might want to do. And, hey, you've only got to come up with 20, 30% of 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. That's all you have to do so that you can do that home improvement. Hey, it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. Not if you want to increase your investment, and that's in essence what you're doing. I mean, hey, you've got equity in that house. The bank ought to take a little bit of the risk, too, because they're going to charge you a top dollar. They're going to make you pay through the nose. We don't have to pay through the nose, nor do you have to come up with a humongous amount of money if you want to do a home improvement. The folks at Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation will finance it 100%. Yeah, you heard me right. 100%. There won't be any upfront fees. We'll get your approval in like 24 to 48 hours in almost every case. The credit criteria, there isn't any. Good credit, bad, slow, indifferent? No. Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation. First and second mortgages, low rates, fast service. Keyword here, fast service. In terms to fit your need. Let me give you the telephone number, please. 264-2648. 264-2648. Licensed mortgage brokers. 14502 North Dale, Mabry. If it has something to do with a mortgage, then Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation is the place for you, okay? I want to tell you, we could be twinkling better in Hillsborough, if you know what I mean. 990-9352, 990-WFLA to make Hillsborough twinkle. Wesley Chapel. Hi, Wesley. You're on the air at 970.
How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
I think blaming Exxon is the wrong way to go because it's really Congress's fault.
I don't blame Exxon. I blame the people that run Exxon.
I blame the Congress because they set the national policy back in the early 70s.
How's that?
When they debated where to run the pipeline to. They had a choice, and they decided the national policy would be to run the pipeline to wherever it is, and then...
Well, you're talking about one very, very specific case. I'm talking about general corporate mismanagement. You know, it's easy for us to focus on a recent story, but I can think of a number of areas, and as a matter of fact, I just mentioned two that have nothing whatsoever to do with pipelines and oil, that something like this would be applicable for.
Well, if you want to blame the person responsible for something, you ought to look at who's really responsible for it.
Well, the guy that's running the place, the guy that owns the place.
Oh, no.
Well,
yeah,
I beg your pardon. If Michael and I go out and set up that lemonade stand and we mess up, you're going to come looking to us, man, because we own it.
That's right. Now, who set up the way that Exxon is handling this? And who, by law, directed them to do it this way?
I beg your pardon. I don't believe there was any law whatsoever that said sit on your ass for a month and think about it to see which way is going to be the cheapest to do it. I don't believe there's any law whatsoever that requires them to do that. Are you aware of one?
No, not
Neither am I.
that way.
You know, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about reckless endangerment of the environment. We're talking about a callous attitude, an absolutely callous attitude on the part of Exxon, and, you know, frankly, in some cases, some of their buddies in the federal government.
Well, in the pipeline, too, and like that. But what would you do? Damn the expense and move from there?
I've already told you what I'd do. I would make real sure that the people who ran Exxon are the ones who paid for it. That they were the ones who lost their interest in the company. They should forfeit their stock. That's the way I would see it.
No, I don't think so, because...
Right, so you end up paying for it. No, I mean, not some guy worth $150 million. My God, don't ask him to pay for it. Not the guy that made the decision to kill all the wildlife and foul all the beaches. My goodness, don't ask him to pay for it. No, you pay for it. That's what you're saying. Why should you pay for it?
The decision to clean it up, I agree, could have been handled better. But it's not going to work.
Well, then there's the other issue here, my friend, and that is some of my colleagues nationwide who want to boycott Exxon. So they want guys that work in the refinery and women that work in the office to pay for it. Because that's who's going to lose their jobs. They're not going to lay off the chairman of the board.
That's no good at all, I agree.
They're not going to lay off the chairman of the board. Maybe if they would, I might consider it. Hell, they'll probably give him a raise.
Yeah, well, that's fine, too. But that's why I want to pin the responsibility where it belongs, on the Congress of the United States.
Well, I'm afraid I'm afraid you're just not listening to the larger issue. You're focusing in just a little bit too narrowly, and because you still have a hard-on left over from when they were building the pipeline. I can understand that, but it's not, in essence, really what we're talking about here, because we're not really talking about Exxon per se. We're talking about corporate management that is not doing a good job. Corporate management that when they mess up, somehow end up passing the price off onto somebody else. And I'm tired of it, and I would think a lot of other people should be tired of it. But, my friend, I thank you much for the input. I genuinely do. 30 minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock.
Problem with helping them to survive. It's not in my best interest to put a couple of million people out of work.
Right.
But I don't think it's in anybody's best interest to allow corporate bigwigs, be it oil spills or unsafe power plants or whatever it is. I just don't think it is reasonable to allow these people off the hook.
Agreed. But who's strong enough or big enough in the federal government that isn't compromised to hold this guy's nose to the grindstone?
Well, anybody that has your support.
We're seeing it right now, the Attorney General saying nothing. And he's the key figure in this whole thing to take legal action against them.
That's because you haven't asked him to. You see, any congressman, any senator, any cabinet officer, anybody that has the support of the people is the one who's strong enough to do it.
I think big oil and petroleum industry are very powerful. Oh, I wanted to mention, by the way...
They're only powerful, sir, because you don't exercise your power.
Oh, I write to them. I am in contact with my congressman. He writes newsletters, and I just go back to him, too.
You see, there are only a handful of chairmen of the board of big oil companies. They can't elect anybody. They can give money, but money doesn't do any good if you don't have the people voting for you to start with.
Right. Now, Saudi Arabia owns about 48 or 49% of Exxon.
Could be. I'll buy it. I don't know.
Yeah, they own that. Now, but another thing I want to bring out, that synthetic oil and gasoline. There was a natural gas study made under Carter administration which said we had a 3,000-year supply available of natural gas. And a bureaucrat got fired. He's a low-level bureaucrat who made the study. He revised it twice, and he wouldn't revise it any lower. He said that's the figure. They fired him. We have the gas. We have the coal reserves. There's no excuse for us to be...
Well, that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about do we have reserves of fossil fuels. I don't know. I've got to take somebody's word, and so therefore I'm not qualified to do a show on it. But I do think I'm qualified to do a show on what is best in registering our displeasure to companies like Exxon, boycotts, or what I've suggested, or just forgive and forget. Because I don't know anything about, how to calculate reserves of natural gas, and whether or not the guy that's calculating knows what the hell he's talking about, or whether there's conspiracy. I don't know anything about that, so I try to stay away from that kind of talk.
Yeah, well, right now we're being jobbed at the gas pump, we're being jobbed by Exxon, and the thing is, how do we legally go about holding them responsible? Because they've got the lawyers, they got the power, and they go into court.
Sir, again, I'm going to tell you one more time that it really annoys me when you guys don't catch on to this. They have zero in the way of power next to you. The only difference, sir, is they exercise the power they have.
Right.
And you apparently choose not to. That's an editorial you.
That's the key. No, you hit it on the head, Bob. You're absolutely right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. We are down to one twinkling Nortner light. I do recall what you people said on Friday. I'm going to hold your little heels to the fire. I promise you I will. So I'll give those numbers again. 990-9352 in Hillsboro, 461-9352 in Pinellas. I would take the call that's on there, but then that, light wouldn't be twinkling, and it would make me feel very bad if there wasn't at least one twinkling Van Ordner light. And besides, Don Richards is standing by the WFLA news desk, and he always twinkles. All through the program, those of you who every Monday sit there and breathlessly wait to hear what the special will be at the Grand Prix Car Wash this week. It is not fair, but this week, I think you will really be very, very pleased with the special. This week, at the Grand Prix Car Wash, you will get 25% off any of the packaged car washes and a coupon as you will, for 25% off the next packaged wash. Now we're talking about the first class, the Super, or the Supreme. It's not just the Supreme or just the Super or just the first class. It's your choice. 25% off this time, 25% off the next time that you come by the Grand Prix Car Wash, and you will come back again. That I am confident of. You see, because the Grand Prix isn't going to let you get away unless you're happy. So there are locations, if you will. The newest, it's in South Tampa, 3622 Gandy Boulevard. There's also one in Seminole at 10471 Park Boulevard, and the original, Gulf to Bay Boulevard, 1880 Gulf to Bay in Clearwater, the Grand Prix Car Wash. To the phones again, St. Petersburg. Hi there, St. You're on the air, 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Afternoon, sir.
I like your idea. Let's find the bigwigs, let's take the money, and let's fund fusion research to its logical conclusion. At this point, I think it's better than synthetic fuels. It's certainly an inexhaustible supply of fuel.
I don't know that we were talking about fusion research.
No, but we were talking about alternate
fuels. We weren't talking about alternate fuels. I don't really know anything about them. And I was talking about how it's the best way to handle this deal, boycott or whatever.
Well, I like your idea. Let's find the bigwigs. Let's take the money and put it into research for clean fuel.
Thank you very much. Off it is now to Palma Sia. Hi there, Palma. You're on the air, 970 WFLA.
Hi, Bob. I caught your topic first thing on your monologue, and it's the first time I've had a chance to talk to you about it. It's obvious to me people don't listen to what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's just, one of the things that goes along with it. Let's look at the 43 cents.
Yeah. One of the things what about refusing a tax deduction? They're going to write a lot of this off as a tax deduction.
Well, it is a legitimate cost of business.
Well, I understand that, but see, somebody's got to. Why should I have to pay for their mistake?
You're going to no matter what. You see, that's the problem, because suppose we refuse the tax deduction. Okay, so they'll jack the price up on something else.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
So no matter how you want to deal with this, the only way I can conceive of, and I've given it a fair amount of thought, of really slapping down hard on the people who are genuinely responsible for this, really slapping the people who deserve to be slapped, is to just take away all their stock, take away all their ownership, interest, and fire them.
That brings up another point I'd like to ask, and I'm sure you've probably dabbled in a little bit of stock, but you realize that the people that do the major amount of investing in this country seem to be the insurance companies.
The insurance companies want to run Exxon. If Harvard University wants to